You're listening to Behind the Bulldogs, brought to you by Ferris State Athletics.
Off the left side, to the end zone! Touchdown, Bulldogs!
If I'm even having like a bad day on the course or something, I just look down at it and just feel like thankful that I'm able to be out there.
Making sure that we're like where our feet are and we're not thinking about outside distractions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another exciting postseason edition, you could say, of Behind the Bulldogs. Brandon Worth, Tatum Outlaw, as always, bringing you the good stuff here. It's officially March, Tatum, and we have a lot of excitement going on.
Oh, yeah, and it's just an exciting time of the year. Hint, hint, we've got some basketball on.
Sure.
Episode 23, Michael Jordan, we got some basketball on. So, yeah, I'm really excited to get into that.
Yeah, we are certainly digging into GOAT status here, and that's because of you guys, of course, sharing, subscribing on all these episodes. We appreciate you. Leave us a 5-star review as well. Let us know what you think. Even if it's a 4-star, you know what? We'll take it. We know we can improve on some things, but we want to hear your feedback. You can also follow us at Behind_Bulldogs for more information. We got a great interview with Coach Westendorp and Schultz coming up ahead of the postseason tournament in Allendale. It's going to be fun, the NCAA Division II National Tournament. But first, we got to, of course, break down how they got there. So we'll take a look at the Ferris State Sports slate from this past weekend. We'll start with women's basketball. Fell in the GLIAC Championship Tournament game to Grand Valley, of course, #1 team in the nation, and they played like it. Certainly on a back-to-back, it's tough to do, but a massive win against Northern Michigan. I mean, it really felt like, early on, really tight game. Northern Michigan, had a little bit of a lead, but the Bulldogs bit right back, chunking the lead down from what was 8 or 7 down to 2 or 1 possession. And then finally in the last 2 minutes, they might only led 2 minutes of the game, but it was the most important 2 minutes at the end.
Yeah, and we made it to the championship, and with how tight our conference is this year, that in itself is a win.
Yes.
So, and we were able to secure a spot into regionals because of that. So, they let 4 teams in for regionals for men's and women's. So I think that just really shows how tough our conference is this year. And, not everyone knows that. It's just kind of like, oh, they lost this game. Oh, this game was close. But our conference is tough. So it's cool to see both of our teams, fight, win all the games that they can, and still be able to make it into regionals.
The GLIAC Gauntlet, as we can informally term, it feels like it, regardless of sport. And also, we'll get to the regionals. You can find out more information later on in the show, FerrisStateBulldogs.com as well. Men's falling right in that GLIAC Tournament Gauntlet to a really good Lake State team. They didn't miss. Anytime they threw the ball up from beyond the arc, it was going in. Defensively wasn't the best game. Offensively, not bad. But Coach Bronkman's team making it into the tournament regardless. Obviously, good seeding there at number 5. Yep. And they're really excited to run it back. Both teams going back to the tournament again after claiming regional titles. It's very exciting, and there's going to be a lot of people watching that Bulldog logo as it moves across the bracket, we hope.
Yeah, and I think our men's team had a little bit of a cushion going into NCAAs, where I think maybe they were a little bit more confident that they were going to make it, but props to Northern for shaking things up. They upset Michigan Tech by 1 point, beat Lake State by a lot of points, right? Wasn't it?
It was a lot of points. I counted 2 digits. Yeah.
So I definitely didn't see Northern winning GLIACs on my, my bingo card, but props to them and sneaking their way into regionals. It should be a fun watch.
March Madness always wrecks the bingo cards, doesn't it?
March is mad.
Yeah. And we still have the Division I tournaments coming up. Brackets, just good luck. Flip a coin. It's better than actually trying to pick them anyway. Hockey season, fortunately, coming to an end against a red-hot St. Thomas team. There's a reason that they're one of the best teams in college hockey right now, just based on what their recent results. Since the calendar year, they've been one of the best winningest teams, and they showed it. They really played well offensively. They were overpowering, and this team was obviously special, right? Special year for Coach Daniels, the coaching staff, right? Really kind of felt like the last hurrah. And this team really fought through the entire end. That game, obviously, in St. Thomas on Saturday night, it looked like it was out of hand, right? The score might not have showed it, but you're getting dominated a little bit, had the chances, but that team fought until the final buzzer sounded, and that's the number one thing that Coach Daniels and this team has done all year, and they should get a lot of credit. A lot of great seniors that we're going to miss, but still, it was a fantastic season. The record might not necessarily show it as one, but this was a team that fought and created some great memories along the way.
Yeah, and we were just talking about this just a couple minutes ago, but hockey's season feels so long, so for them to continue to improve throughout the season, growth isn't linear, but we definitely had our ups and downs, but to see them continue to improve is huge.
Yeah, they just got into their 6th month of games.
Yeah, that's
6 months.
bizarre.
Obviously, March can be a week, can be a month, but over 5 months of games. And you still kicking, like that's incredible stuff. We talk about a lot of that and just with a lot of the coaches, and it's impressive just to stay that healthy. But we also got spring break action coming up here. Tennis, gonna be doing some tennis type of things.
Tennis will be tennising.
Tennis will be tennising. You're right. Golf will be golfing. That one works a little bit better. Yeah. And then we also have basketball in action. We'll get you the details on that later. But first, let's get the fans what they want with a great interview.
Yep, let's do it.
Now joining us here in the interview room, we have a pair of special guests from women's basketball. We got head coach Kurt Westendorp as well as guard Schultz. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us here.
Absolutely. And obviously big trip ahead. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But first of all, over the last 3 years, you've obviously seen tournaments the last 2, 3 out of the last 4 years. This year, the selection show felt a little bit different for you guys, a little bit more of that on edge. Are we going to get in rather than where are we going to be? Just talk about the selection show, the reaction to see your name up on the bracket.
Well, for me, it was one of those, I'm really happy that we were playing in the championship game on Sunday. So like, even though that game didn't go our way, we only had, a couple hours, the bus ride back was probably a little stressful. And then the 2 hours I think I was at home was pretty stressful. So coming back up here, I couldn't imagine what that would be like if it was an entire day that you were like that, or multiple days that it was like that. But, you hear rumors, people send you texts and like, oh, we're feeling good about it. And you're just like, okay, well, I'm glad you're feeling good about it.
Yeah.
We were definitely nervous. We felt like we had a really good chance. But you just never know. Like I've seen crazy things happen. So it was nervousness. And then when the name came up, I saw the video of all these guys, I feel like every single arm shot up in the air.
Yes.
Like it was like you guys were doing YMCA and it went in and boom, every hand went up in the air of everybody. And I was like, all right, that was a great emotion to see, to get the payoff for what really has been an awesome year. But just to see them, the joy that instant reaction, it's like, okay, heart can skip a little beat and you can feel a little bit relieved.
Absolutely. Allie, how about you?
I mean, for me, it was kind of one of those things, like coach was always honest with us of like where we were maybe looking at, but it was something that after the game was over, our seniors were a little upset. And I'm like, I'm not hugging you yet. Like, I just had the feeling like we're not done. We have so much left to do. So maybe I didn't know for sure, but I think I just kind of had that feeling like we had a pretty good shot still.
Well, and didn't they let 4 teams in your conference? And yeah, that just shows, how competitive your guys' conference has been this year. So looking forward, going into regionals, what's the mindset like and how are you going to tackle these games coming up?
It's one of those things that like every game matters from here on out. Like your record 0-0, what happened before doesn't really matter anymore. Like these are the games you got to show up for. And, we have time before to prepare for all of them. And I think it's just kind of locking in and taking all of those moments as serious as you can.
Yeah, it's nice that there are 4 GLIAC teams in. Like it's wonderful to get 4. I mean, it really proved that the strength of our conference, kind of carried the day because, we had double-digit losses. Wayne has double-digit losses, and Wayne's a 4 seed, with double-digit losses. It just proves that, night in and night out, we got challenged. Every game in our conference is an absolute grind, and ultimately that was what I think got all of our teams in, or most of our teams in, is we had some really good wins, but we get tested night in and night out. And it's nice that also going into the weekend, none of the 4 GLIAC teams play against each other in the first round. Nice. So I'll compliment the committee on that it's like, on the men's side, I think Tech and Northern play each other in game 1. So it's like, no one's happy when you see that. You want it to be more of a national tournament, even though we have regional tournaments. It's nice that you're playing a team that, I'm not saying we're unfamiliar because we played Ashland earlier in the year. We played Hillsdale earlier in the year. The only 2 teams in this region that we haven't played yet are Quincy and Lewis, and they're on the other side of the bracket. So it's nice that you get to play someone different, get to play someone new, even though we did play Ashland back in November. It's nice that you kind of reset. Hopefully these guys enjoyed their day off yesterday. Practice today won't be too taxing on their bodies. Want to be nice and fresh, because the GLIAC tournament run, it can take a little bit out of you because it's not just the basketball, but it's the stress. Playing Roosevelt, it's not just, okay, we got to win the basketball game. It's like, okay, well, what does it mean if you win or if you lose? And it's like the stress weighs on you a little bit.
Sure.
And then Saturday, to play that great game that we played in advance. And then Sunday, Friday, to not quite have enough to, really battle with Grand Valley the way we wanted to battle with Grand Valley. It took a lot out of us, and we got to make sure that we're really rested. We're ready to go. We're hit the road, get down to Grand Rapids, and, enjoy our time together. And I think last year's experience will really pay dividends because we were ready to go that first game. And I don't think it's going to be any different, this Friday. I think we're going to be really, really ready to go. And it's going to be a great opponent every single game from here on out. There are no easy games in our region.
Absolutely. And before we get into the off-court stuff, especially comparing it to last year's team, similar opponent playing Ashland this time 1 round earlier. For you, Coach, and then Allie, we'll get your perspective too. What's the biggest difference you think between how this team operates compared to what you had for last year's team?
I think one of the biggest differences is last year's team pretty much from October, November, you're starting, you're installing what you want to do. You kind of develop an identity, and it pretty much stayed the same the whole year. There wasn't like a lot of wild lineup shifts, a lot of wild strategy shifts. It was just, all right, we added some things here and there, but we pretty much were the team we were in October, in March, and this year, I think we've had 4 or 5 different versions of our team, from September, September it was kind of one version of the team. In October, another version. We start the season, kind of at what was close to full strength. We weren't quite all the way at full strength, but close to it, and then having Mara go down, it's like, okay, now you're changing up a little bit. And then you get to January and Caden goes down, you got to change a little bit more. And now Shauna's kind of gone out, and it's like, okay, you're changing a little bit more. We kind of went through solid man-to-man to, okay, now we're going to press a little bit to, okay, now we can't really press as much. Okay, are we going 4 guards with Caden as like that tweener to, are we going to go 2 put? Like, we've just changed a lot as the year has gone on. We've played a ton of zone this year on defense, which we didn't play, I don't think, hardly any last year. So like the team has just kind of had to take on all these ebbs and flows and different challenges and trying to find just so many different ways to win games, so many different lineups, trying to find ways to mesh with each other. And they've handled it really, really well because we couldn't just stay the same, with the changes that were happening within the team. And we've gotten better at a lot of different areas that I wasn't sure if we could do, like on the zone side of it, because we usually play a lot of man-to-man, and our zone's really improved as the season's gone on, and it's actually won us a couple games. So they've done a good job of just kind of adapting and just, all right, something new, let's roll with it. Not looking back and feeling sad about like, oh, we don't have this kid now, or oh, now we don't have that kid. It's like, well, let's find what works best and roll it out there and see if it's good enough.
For sure. Allie, how about your perspective?
I think like going off of what Coach said, just having like those different lineup changes, a lot of different people have had to step up and fill that role. And I think having those different flexibilities in different games and stuff like that, being able to play so many different things, like one team can't prepare on what we're going to throw at them. There's so many different things that they have to prepare for. And I think that gives us a little edge of like, this isn't working. Okay, let's switch to the next thing. And it just throws people off their rhythm.
Yeah, I think you guys have dealt with a lot of adversity daily, weekly. I mean, from the start to where you guys are now dealing with injury, and like this conference is very tough. How does your guys', because I know you guys focus a good bit on team culture as well and leadership, how does that reflect your guys' ability to make changes and just, keep dealing with the adversity moving forward?
I think although like, some of our key players aren't on the court, like they're still there. And I think that's like something to recognize that, maybe Kaden, Mara, Shauna, they're not on the court, but the second you come off the court, they're saying, hey, I'm noticing this, like, something that's just a quick change that, I can't see, but they see. It's like a different perspective for everybody. And I think it's just something that like we can trust on each other to like have that different point of view for each other.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're really invested in each other, with when Kaden kind of went down, because she's also one of our captains. It's like, you're still a captain. You still have a big role. Like, your role is no longer to score points.
Yeah.
Your role is to make sure that, you're there for your teammates. Like, you're seeing what, we're seeing, you're picking them up, just like, she's not going to be, you're not happy when you tear your ACL and you have to have surgery. And it's like, her teammates have to be there for her, more off the court. But when then we get in the gym, it's like, okay, it's your job to do this, for your team. And, same with Shauna, she's just trying to build up everybody's cup, trying to make sure that she's bringing her personality to the team and making sure she's getting everyone joking around and feeling good, and that she's not being so down on herself either, that it's like you don't bring the negativity in. Like, we all know that bad things have happened, injuries, they're bad things, they happen. And, when we talk really early in the year when we're trying to build up our team culture and doing our little, classroom sessions and things and talking about grit. We don't talk about, like if bad things happen or if challenges happen. It's when, because they're coming. Like you're naive if you think you can go through an entire year and things aren't going to get completely thrown out of whack. It happens to every team and every season. It's like, all right, you're going to be shocked for a moment. You're shocked and like, okay, you're saddened. You got to go through all the emotions. Like we're people, you have to go through all those emotions, but then it's like, all right, no one's going to feel sorry for us. Teams aren't going to be like, oh, sorry, you don't have her. We'll sit our kid out too, because it's a little bit different. Like, no, people are still gunning for us every single time. And you just have to find different ways and understand that, okay, we got to meet the different challenges in different ways. And, we've lost quite a few games, but it wasn't until that last week that we lost 2 in a row. For every setback we had, we bounced back every single time, save for that last week of the season, where we lost those 2 on the road. And that was the first time that happened to us. And, it could have been 3 in a row and the season's over, but we stepped up and found a way to win that, GLIAC quarterfinal game to set up another win for us to propel us to where we are today.
Absolutely. And getting into the culture, speaking of which, going to have a bus ride up ahead, not very far as compared to the men's who now have to go to Springfield. But when it comes to the traditions of the bus ride, we've heard some teams, like to play cards or, like to watch movies. Is there something specific with women's basketball? Coach Westendorp has a look on his face.
He's like, I'm watching.
Not so much in the bus. Like the bus rides are pretty short and I'm not really well connected on the bus. I'm in my own world on the bus trying to get there. But once we're to the hotel, like these guys are card players.
Oh,
card players.
okay.
They're card players. They're gamers. Usually a lot of euchre.
A lot of
yes.
a lot of cribbage.
Cribbage was one of the big ones. There was multiple boards. We haven't done as much cribbage this year. But they had multiple cribbage boards going. On some of the long road trips, I bring a board game sometimes, like the Tech Northern trip. You haven't played it with us. We've played Settlers of Catan.
Yes, that's a great game.
So
yes.
I think it was Mia Riley, Allie, or not Allie. You weren't playing with us.
No, I don't think that one.
It was Maya Hiram played with us. Mallory McCartney, who doesn't like to lose at anything.
I haven't heard that. No, I don't believe it.
So she's
totally can't tell.
She's a little competitive when it comes to resource trading. She drives a hard bargain.
Ooh.
Last year Coach K was in with it in Namaka. We'd had a few times, but we only did that on like some of the longer road trips.
Sure,
it's like you got a lot of dead time in the hotel. What did Elle bring her Xbox on the last trip?
Nice.
Yeah, she forgot her controller though, so she couldn't upgrade her Xbox all the way. But it is upgraded now, so that's all full. But
nice.
Codenames has been a new one too that everybody's been playing. That's a fun one. Yeah,
we really try to get down in like the lobby.
Oh yeah,
like when you're in the hotel, like lobby, or like a lot of these places will do the meeting rooms. So like last year at the Elite Eight, we had this huge meeting room. That's where we ate all our meals, and it was great because it was so big that it wasn't just like the team; it was a team like and the families.
Yeah,
the families can be down there. So when they're playing, like it was at Northern, they were playing that Codenames game, and it was like all the families when they're playing too. So different tables kind of had different things. So we're not a retreat to your room and shut the door kind of team.
Sure.
That's awesome.
So it's a pretty much hang out in the lobby kind of stuff. So they're a competitive group all the way around. I like to win sometimes, but it seems like I'm always on the losing end of cards.
I feel
Settlers, and I'm like, man, I need to get a win sometimes.
Sure.
The moments traveling are like, I swear, the best memories ever. Speaking of traveling, what are your guys' favorite gyms or arenas to play in and why?
Ooh. I'm gonna have to think about this one. I don't know if you have.
I like playing at Tech.
Ooh,
I like playing at Tech.
That might be a first.
That might be a first.
I like the band. The band, they're
band
crazy.
Is awesome.
They're great.
They are crazy, but they bring the atmosphere. Like when you walk into like Tech to play them, and like maybe not like a first, but when you're walking out, like when you're coming out like 8 minutes to go and the band is going and the crowd is filling up, like it just feels like it's a big game.
Yeah.
Like no matter where you're at in the stands, and we've usually both been pretty good when we've played them, it just feels like, this is important. Where some games you go and you play and it's like there's not much of a crowd.
Sure.
The energy is
no
so
band
important.
or no DJ, and it's like, all right, we'll just tipping this sucker off and we're playing.
Yeah.
All right, well let's go do it. And it always just feels like it's a big game when you're playing at Tech.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you have some of the best fans in the conference. Not disrespecting the Bulldog fans, of course. Allie, how about you?
Honestly, now that you point that out, I do like Tech. I like the feeling of home, being a Youper and all. I like going home and like having a little bit of that feeling, all the snow. I love it. My first thought kind of went to Wayne State. I love their facilities. I mean, it's super nice. The locker rooms are super nice. But now that you point out Tech, I think I almost like that better. Or like Parkside, having their crowd and stuff like that too.
Yeah,
It's just like
Parkside.
one of those things. Like it feels like a big game. So definitely the environment. I think more so maybe than a specific gym, but wherever it feels like a good game.
For sure.
We'll see how it builds up at Northern, but it was great to not be in the ice arena.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that was always a place that always felt dead. So now that they're in that facility, like it was,
nice.
Everyone was right on top of you, and they got the better of us. And there was a great crowd in there. It was our senior day. It was our last home games. So they had an awesome crowd in there. I think that one's got a chance to kind of become one of the better places in the GLIAC because people come out and support them.
Yeah.
But like you said, no one like the Bulldog fans. So number one in attendance still
are.
Still this year, number one.
Still number one. Speaking of the Uper trip, I know you guys had a super unique opportunity for you, Allie. Just talk about the experience being able to have the high schoolers come join you and coach you, especially just getting that set up.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of one of those things like he had brought it up to me at practice or whatever like that because we were going up and we weren't staying in Sault Ste. Marie. We were staying in Mackinac City. He's like, can you ask, your coaches? And I was like, yeah, they'd love it. I'm sure like they're going to get the high school team to come out of practice, like out of their classes to come to it. And sure enough, they were there. So it was just really cool to see them all again. I mean, every time I go home, I'm doing something with them back at home, whether it's working a camp in the summer or just going to their practices whenever I'm home over like Thanksgiving or Christmas. So really nice to see how they've developed as players since I've been gone. I mean, the senior class are the only ones that I've ever played with, but it's really cool just to see them all again and like have them supporting me, like just as we were supporting each other, like not too long ago.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was just great how it all came together. And like, I just kind of had the idea and I was like, Allie, try to make it happen. And she made it all happen.
Yeah.
Like, and those that don't know, like St. Ignace basketball is one of those traditions.
Yes.
It goes on the boys' side, on the girls' side. Like as far as small school basketball goes, when I was recruiting Allie, like that was some of my most fun games to go to. Because like how many times do you go to high school games and when the school song plays, everyone stands up and claps along with the school song? Like, it happened when I was in high school, when I graduated in 2001. And before that, school spirit and school pride was a little bit more, ingrained, like school song, everyone's standing and everyone's clapping.
Right.
Awesome.
And like, you don't see it all that much places.
No.
They play the school song and people are like, oh yeah, this is a school song. It's like, well, why aren't you up and clapping and like singing
like, get
along?
rowdy, come on,
singing
it's a school
along
song.
and singing along with it. And like you walk in, it's like every single person in the gym in St. Ignace, this was, 2020, 2021 on their feet, like clapping along, and their coaches have been there for a long time and had a lot of success. The girls are still rolling. They're in the regional finals. They got a shot at another state title, or making that run. The Saints are still marching on. So it was just cool that we could get across the bridge and have a good shoot around, be there, just kind of again see some of their team and give Allie just more experiences, those memories that hopefully those last.
Awesome.
Yeah, bouncing off of that, what was your recruiting process like for Allie? Like, what did you see in her that you were like, I need her here? And then maybe for you, your point of view, or when was that moment for you that you were like, I want to do this in college?
Well, for me, it was when I came in, it was COVID.
Yeah.
I got hired in May of 2020. I got hired in May of 2020, and usually in basketball, okay, it's summertime, you got to go out and recruit. Well, NCAA says no.
Yeah.
You can't go out and recruit.
Yeah.
So thankfully, we were in a spot with the roster here where it's like, well, everyone for the next year was already committed. And even the kids for the next year, that was my Hiram's class, were already committed. So I didn't have to go out to these tournaments. And she was playing in some of those tournaments, but it was all live streamed. And I'm like, how can I tell on a computer screen who's really can play and who can't? So I didn't do a whole lot. But I actually saw Allie in one of my very first times when the NCAA lifted the restrictions. I think it was like September or October. They lifted the restrictions. So the only thing going on at those times was like AAU teams were having open gyms and open workouts and different things that were going on. So the AAU club that she plays for, the Michigan Mystics, had one of those workouts. So my first time in the gym, I might have seen you the very first time that I was out. And there's like, 60, 70 kids in that little gym just going through the workouts. And the AAU coach is like, this is this kid, that's that kid. And I'm just like, I was just kind of overwhelmed. But I remember seeing Allie like that very first time. I think Claire might have been there too as a youngster.
Yeah.
Like she was a youngster. Like she was in the gym along with several other players that we recruited and tried to recruit. So that was the very first time I got to see Allie. And that whole season was that was the crazy COVID year where luckily I could go to some of her high school games, but she couldn't really come here to come to our games because no fans were allowed.
Sure.
So the recruiting process kind of picked up are more around like in those winter months. You know, there was, I think I remember a couple of Zooms, you know, and she wasn't even able to really come to camp. I think you came once when there was snow on the ground and then back again in April because it was just so different.
There was a storm, so I got here late. I got here like in the middle of your guys' practice because there was a ton of snow.
That's like a common thing. I've heard so many people have been like, yeah, when I came here on a visit, it was storming. Like I've heard that all different sports too. I think
snowing,
that's just a thing.
Thunderstorm, whatever it is.
I think that's just a thing here.
Maybe that's the sign then.
So,
Yeah.
For sure. Allie, your perspective, just going through that whole process.
Well, I mean, my sister played at Saginaw Valley and stuff. So it's kind of one of those things, having a little maybe edge of kind of knowing maybe what to look for, kind of, you know, things like that. And she always told me, like, you'll get that gut feeling when you go to the place, like, you'll just know you want to be here. And I remember that first practice and stuff like that. I was like, I remember being on the ride home and like my parents were talking and they thought I was sleeping in the back, but they were just like, you know, like, this is where she has seemed the happiest on her visits. And then coming back in May and stuff like that, Mal and Chloe were here and like, just like we were playing games until like midnight. We were going to go work out in the morning. And I was like, this just feels right. It was one of those things that like, it's like, Katie, you were right. And I don't like to admit my sister's right, but she was right. She knew it. And it was just like, I knew that this is where I wanted to be.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming. Last question before you go, however, what's been your favorite thing about being here at Ferris State and being a Bulldog?
The culture. I mean, in every single scenario, like in the classroom, on the court, on the field, off the field, like you see everywhere that everybody's just a family. You're always saying hi to the people you know. Like there's never been a moment that I've felt unwelcomed here. And I think that's been the biggest thing to like, this is now my home.
For sure. Coach, how about you?
I kind of say just I want to say this in a little different way. The pride that people have in each other. You know, a lot of times pride is like a self thing. And it's like you take pride in yourself. But it's like, you know, when volleyball's doing their thing, it's like, we are so proud of you. Yeah. Like, and when we're doing our stuff, it's like we feel like you're so proud of us.
Yeah.
And, you know, we get to celebrate those like great moments. But even in the moments where it's like we, you know, when you guys, the season came to a close, it's like, we're still proud of you.
Yeah.
Like, and like, even if we fall short, it's like, I feel like, you know, you guys are still proud of us. And like, I feel like no one can ever let anybody down in this place. You know, I feel like we're all giving it our best for each other, you know, and obviously for ourselves, because we have, you know, selfish ambitions. We want to win, you know, because you're competitors, but just the pride that we all take in each other. I don't think you see that in a whole lot of places. Like there aren't really any silos at Ferris State. You know, we're all just kind of one big family of Bulldogs, and the pride that we have in each other, like you don't find it a lot of other places. So that's what I think really makes this place special.
Beautiful point.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming on the show, and good luck in Allendale this weekend.
All right. Thank you.
Big thanks to Coach Westendorp and Allie for joining us on the show. Great as always. And we're learning one thing with a lot of these teams. Board games are back and they are thriving with these teams.
I would have to agree. I mean, what more would athletes want to do than play games outside of the games they already play every day?
Makes sense. Yeah. Competitive spirit, you know, I can't see it, you know, it's like, it's just like another game, but I do want to participate in some Sellers of Catan. It's been a minute since I played that game and I used to be really good.
And they seem like a fun team. I like the way they hang out in the lobby so often. Like that just sounds awesome. I want to join.
Yeah. And for those that obviously the ESPY's coming up, when I filmed an intro video with Mallory McCartney, you know, when they brought up that she has competitive side, I was like, no, there's no way. We were literally doing competitions, filming the video. There was no competition whatsoever. So shout out to Mal as well. Very much a key contributor for how this episode even happened. But speaking of the Ferris State Sports Slate, let's get you on your way before you obviously head out to watch some of these teams and follow along over a really well-deserved spring break for all of our Bulldog fans. It starts on Tuesday. Tennis will be taking on Dallas Baptist. That is a 12 o'clock first serve on Tuesday, March 11th, as you're probably hearing this. As well as Wednesday, we got women's and men's tennis against Embry-Riddle down there in spring break. And then softball will be taking on Goldie Beacom. Yes, that is the name of the school, Goldie Beacom. So I didn't know that existed, but they'll be taking them on in Melbourne, as well as they'll be playing Thomas More. That's more of a team that we are familiar with in the region. Thursday, March 13th, also have some softball. They're going to be taking on New Haven and Uville as well. Those two teams will be taking on the Bulldogs on Thursday. You can find out more, of course, with all these games at FerrisStateBulldogs.com. Ursuline on Friday, 10 a.m., as well as women's and men's tennis will be taking on St. Mary's of Texas, not California, there in Melbourne. And then also Franklin Pierce for softball will be at 12:15. And then we got the big one, Friday, Allendale, be there at 2:30. Dogs
No excuses.
and Eagles again against Ashland. This was a team that was number 2 in the country last year when we played them going into the tournament, and we beat them in the same gym. So we're going to need you guys to show up because this team, they are great, but they play even better with good fans.
I know. And like, this will be our last time playing at Allendale. Regionals will be the last time. So you guys better go and support.
I better do it. Damn. Or you're going to have to go to Pennsylvania potentially.
Yeah, you should go to Pennsylvania.
You should. Obviously, crossing fingers. And I'm knocking on wood under the table. Saturday, March 15th, women's tennis against one of the most greatest schools ever, Indiana University, Pennsylvania. How that makes sense for a school name, I don't know. And then you also have men's basketball. Key detail change here, though, if you might have saw on Monday. They are taking on Missouri St. Louis, right? The 4-5 combo at 8:30 on Saturday. One change, it is not in Rolla, Missouri. It is now in Springfield, Illinois. So key change, and that's actually not far from your stomping grounds, Tatum.
Yeah, it's like a good 10 minutes from my house. I'm feeling a little sad that I can't be there. But
yeah.
Best of luck. I'm sending them my good vibes, my Springfield vibes.
Absolutely. And then golf will be in action starting next week. They're from North and South Carolina. So good luck to Coach Stark and the golf teams that we just signed in last week.
A lot of new and interesting teams that we're facing this week.
Yes, spring is here. And
spring is sprung.
Apparently the weather is also cooperating.
Knock on wood, because if we get a blizzard in a week, I'm going to be mad.
Me too. I already put away my snow stuff out of my car. So snow scraper gone. Like if it ices, we might not do a podcast next week.
Well, good weather means good road conditions. So I feel like maybe you guys could all travel to Allendale at least and go support some women's basketball.
You are pushing the fans pretty hard. You did last week and you're going right back to it again.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's going behind enemy lines for the team.
Can't hurt.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. Great matchups coming up. You can obviously follow along with this show. For more information as well, it's FerrisStateBulldogs.com. Third time's the charm for the URL poll here this morning. But we appreciate you guys. Hopefully you found this early week episode ahead of the postseason. And be sure to subscribe. We got some great guests upcoming. And as we now spring into the spring seasons.
Yes, and everyone be safe on spring break.
Please do. And travel back to Big Rapids safely. Until next time, here on Behind the Bulldogs. Take care, everybody.
Bye.